Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Let's get started and look into our daily quiz. Let's look into the first question. Which of the following articles in the Indian Constitution are associated with education? Article 21A, Article 27, Article 45, Article 47. The answer to this is 1 and 3 only. Now let's look into the next practice question. Consider the following statements with respect to right to education. The 86th Constitutional Amendment inserted Article 21A in the Indian Constitution. It provides free and compulsory education for children between the age of 6 to 14 years. The RTE Act has provisions for a non-admitted child to be admitted to an age-appropriate class. Which of the above statements are correct? The answer to this is 1, 2 and 3. Why have we taken both these practice questions? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to Right to Education Act. Let us try and understand what are these options. When we look into the first question, it speaks about 4 articles. We have Article 21A. Article 21A says the state shall provide free and compulsory education to all children of the age of 6 to 14 years in such manner as the state may by law determine. So it says that free and compulsory education will be provided to children between the age group of 6 to 14 years. So the emphasis here is 6 to 14 years of age, and at the same time the article also says that the state may come up with a law. Such a law is what is called as Right to Education Act. The second article the question points to is Article 27. Article 27 does not speak about education, but instead Article 28 speaks about education where freedom as to attendance at religious instruction or religious worship in certain educational institution. So it is Article 28 which also is associated with educational institution. Then we have Article 45, provision for early childhood care and education to children below the age of 6 years. And then we also have Article 46 which speaks about promotion of educational and economic interests of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes and other weaker sections, and it is not Article 47. So if we look into the first question, Article 27 is wrong, Article 47 is wrong, it is only 1 and 3. So the answer to this would be 1 and 3. Now if you look into the second question, consider the following statements with respect to right to education. Yes, Article 21A was inserted in 86th Constitutional Amendment Act. Then the second statement also says it provides free and compulsory education for children between the age group of 6 to 14 years. We did just discuss, and that happens to be the right statement once again. The third statement also says the RTE Act has provisions for a non-admitted child to be admitted at an age appropriate class. Now if you look into some of the important provisions with respect to Right to Education Act, it says the act makes it clear that compulsory education implies that it is an obligation on the part of the government to ensure that admission, attendance and completion of elementary education of children between the age of 16 to 14. So it provides free and compulsory education to children belonging to this age group. The Act prohibits mental harassment and physical punishment, screening procedures for the admission of children, capitation fees, private tuition by the teachers, running schools with no recognition, and such is barred under this particular act. It also specifies the standards and norms for the pupil teacher ratios, infrastructure, buildings, working days of the school and for the teachers. How many students should be present in a class? A single teacher can handle how many students are all mentioned under pupil teacher ratio. Now let's look into the next practice question. With respect to African Union, which of the following statements are correct? The AU Secretariat, the African Union Commission, is based in Abuja, Nigeria. The Abuja Treaty led to the creation of African Union. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is none. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to the African Union. Remember, the African Union was not established because of Abu Abuja Treaty as given in this option, but instead it was established with the Sirte Declaration. So remember, it was because of the Sirte Declaration they happened to establish the African Union and not the Abuja Treaty. When you look into the first option, the AU Secretariat, the African Union Commission, is not based in Abuja, Nigeria, but instead it is based in Addis Ababa, which happens to be in Ethiopia, which is why both the options are wrong. The answer to this would be none. Now, if you look into what is this African Union all about, the African Union came into picture. That is because you had Africa as a continent which was under the control of the colonial masters. You had the French which ruled the African continent. You also had the British. You also had the Germans as well. So many countries were able to rule the African continent and they were under the control of the colonial masters. Most of the countries did get their independence as well in order to overcome this colonial imprint on the African continent, so that there is coordination, development, growth of all these countries in the African continent. What they came up is what is called as African Union. Today there are about 55 countries who are part of this African Union. So remember, the AU's headquarters are in Addis Ababa, which happens to be in Ethiopia, and not, as we mentioned, in Abuja, Nigeria. And there are other important objectives as well: achieving greater unity and solidarity among the African countries and the people, defending the territorial integrity, sovereignty and independence of the 55 member states, accelerating the political as well as socio-economic integration of the African continent, promote and defend African common positions on issues of interest on the continent and its people, promoting the popular participation and governance of the continent, including democratic principles and institutions. In spite of all these political consensus and their objectives, yet they have failed in multiple issues. Let's say, for example, Africa still has myriad problems like decolonization issue, underdevelopment, terrorism. In fact, Arab Spring are all come up in the African continent. Added to this, Africa also has a weak manufacturing base as well. It also has weak human development index as well, lack of competitiveness, lack of mutual complementarity, and other trade relations issues have also put down the growth of the African continent. This is why African Union was established, to overcome all these issues and to take care of the African diaspora as well. Now let's look into the next practice question. Which of the following statements about Basai wetland are correct? It is located in Gurgaon district in Haryana. It is recognized globally as an important bird area by the BirdLife International. Which of the statements are correct? The answer to this is both. Why have we taken this practice question? Because this article on the Hindu makes a reference to Basai wetlands. So remember, the Basai wetlands is in the state of Haryana, and this is very important from the preliminary examination point of view. And the second statement is also right. That is because it has been recognized as the important bird area by the BirdLife International. But of late, this particular wetland has been seeing a lot of challenges and threats when it comes to this wetland. What are the issues? When we consider this wetland, there are a number of infrastructural projects that are happening in and around this particular region. Large scale construction of roads, housing projects are taking place. Infrastructure development means that there is a problem and threat to this particular wetland, as they may capture some of the areas of this particular wetland. Added to it, people are also dumping garbage directly into this wetland, and at the same time they are not protecting this wetland, which happens to be one of the important areas for the birds. As a result, this article goes on to say an awareness has to be created amongst the people. If they do not have so, there could also be a problem in the near future, as there can be water scarcity in this particular region. So bringing about an awareness to the people so that they do not dump garbage, they do not pollute this wetland, and at the same time the construction activities does not happen in the periphery, is what is this article all about. Now let's look into the next article. This article here is making a mention of black percher, which is also called as black ground skimmer, whose scientific name is Diplacotch lefebevrei, and this article is important, or UPSC may also ask why, because this article makes a mention of the IUCN status, which is nothing but least concern. So remember, the black ground skimmer or the black percher is nothing but a dragonfly, and its IUCN status is least concern. Now let's look into the next practice question. A legislation which confers on the executive or administrative authority an unguided and uncontrolled discretionary power in the matter of application of law violates which one of the following articles of the Constitution of India? The answer to this is Article 14. This happens to be a previous year question from the year 2021. Now let's look into the fact of the day. The fact of the day for today's discussion happens to be BIMSTEC. Let us try and understand what is this BIMSTEC all about. Initially, this was an economic bloc. It had about 4 countries which formed this economic bloc. This included Bangladesh, India, Sri Lanka and Thailand, and EC stands for the economic cooperation. So initially, when this economic bloc was formed, it only had about 4 countries. Followed by this, another country was added, which is nothing but Myanmar, back in the year 97. The BISTEC becomes BIMSTEC. So basically, we have Bangladesh, India, Myanmar, Sri Lanka and Thailand economic cooperation. Finally, we also have the entrance of Nepal as well as Bhutan into this economic bloc. So what we have is the Bay of Bengal initiative for multi-sectoral technical and economic cooperation, which is called as BIMSTEC. Where is it headquartered? It is headquartered in Dhaka, and today we have about 7 countries, that is India, Thailand, Myanmar, Nepal, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka and Bhutan, who are part of this BIMSTEC. Initially, when it was created with the help of a Bangkok Declaration. These can be very important from the preliminary examination point of view. What are the objectives of BIMSTEC? Economic development, to create an enabling environment for rapid economic development through identification and implementation of specific cooperation projects. How does this work? There are many countries in this economic bloc. Every country might have specialization in a particular sector. So this country which has a specialization in a particular sector will also lead another country. For example, when it comes to India, India has development when it comes to environment and disaster management. India has expertise in transportation and communication. India has advantages when it comes to counter-terrorism and transnational crime. So India will lead every other country when it comes to the economic development as well as sectoral development. Then we have growth, to accelerate the economic growth and social progress in the sub-region through joint endeavors in spirit of equality and partnership. Collaboration, to promote active collaboration and mutual assistance on matter of common interest in economic, social, technical and scientific fields. Then all these countries will come together to train on research facilities, and ultimately there will be cooperation amongst all these countries. Now the most important factor is, why is India inclining towards BIMSTEC? That is because of 2 reasons. One, not much of activities is happening on the South Asian Association for the Regional Cooperation, and the other major reason is because of Pakistan entrance in the SAC, which is why India is closely integrated with BIMSTEC. It is this that we have to understand in reference to BIMSTEC. So this is it for today. Thank you for watching. All the best.